See, if we have enough time, I might go back to this video, but there's something else that we want to cover with this. Oh, real quick, going back though, just to the idea of Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo Bay, you have a lot of individuals that say, like, how could those soldiers do that? Like, what kind of got into them? And you have some people that argue that, like, they've been away from their families for a long time, like really hot conditions, they're really irritable and frustrated with the Iraqi people, and so they're kind of taking it out on those prisoners. But there's a prison experiment that was done at Stanford University by a guy named Philip Zimbardo. We talked about that in this class. Sam, you've heard of it.
I've heard of it, but is it the one where they ask the people to zap the other people, like give them electric shocks, and then they would hear like the people screaming, but the person would keep telling them to do it like over and over again?
I'm impressed about that one, but that one's a different experiment by a guy named Stanley Milgram. So let me show you who Philip Zimbardo is. There's a Netflix documentary on this. I wouldn't necessarily recommend watching it at your age, but I'll tell you a little bit about the Zimbardo experiment. So Philip Zimbardo, he's a psychologist, and he did this. Yeah.
Didn't we talk about this where there's like prisoners and then cops or whatever?
Yep.
And there's like a simulation type thing?
Yeah, good memory there. Yeah, so he had all of these people come in. He put out like flyers throughout Stanford University, and people signed up. So in this experiment, he just divided them up randomly. He had some dress up as guards and some dress up as prisoners. Then he just observed to see what would happen, and it turned chaotic, and you had all these guards that were like out of control and basically like abusing these prisoners, and they were all like on the same level like right before the experiment. They were all just students, but they just split themselves up into those groups after, and then the guards were just taking out like a lot of like anger. And one of the ideas though that Philip Zimbardo advocated after this is that it's like you can get good people that can like just let power get to their heads, and especially when you're in a group and if you have authority over someone and other people in your group are being cruel, it can lead you to just like go along with it and do the same thing. And so yeah, there's a lot of comparisons to what happened in Abu Ghraib in Iraq with the Philip Zimbardo experiment. So here's this quote from him. It said, "Good people can be induced, seduced, and initiated into behaving in evil ways." So yeah, this was a pretty controversial experiment at the time. He actually was going to keep it going longer, but I believe it was his girlfriend, who was a psychology student and was following what was happening. She was like super disgusted with it, and she convinced him to end it early. Yeah.
So was it kind of like the one where the teacher, like, she divided up the kids, and then she said the kids with like brown eyes were superior, and then like the kids with the brown eyes started being mean to like all the other kids? Have you heard of that one?
I think I've vaguely heard of it. I don't know enough details to say yes, but based off your description, it sounds potentially comparable. Okay. And then, yeah, like I said, we'll go back to this Iraq War video if we have time, but the other huge event that we want to talk about is called the Arab Springs Uprising. So the way this started is you had a guy in Tunisia that was upset with the government, and he went to protest and lit himself on fire. And then people in his country were just like outraged with the government. When this guy died, they start protesting in the country, and it just starts spreading. You just have like this message that just spreads. And so one of the common themes that they would have banners saying is, people demand removal of the regime. Basically saying like, we want new leaders in power, and they start advocating for democracy. They understand that people in Europe and that people in the United States, that they have democratic forms of government, that they get to vote for their leaders, and they start advocating for the same thing. You have people showing up, sometimes monster groups, up to 100,000 people that are protesting in kind of their town hall areas in front of the government. You have individual leaders that will get afraid and leave their country. So in that case, it's like the people win. There's all kinds of chaos, though, that comes from it. There's the Syrian civil war, there's the Libyan civil war, you have power vacuums that are created across the Middle East, where you have others then trying to like fill the role and become the leader in that area. And social media, especially Facebook, is credited as one of the main factors in the Arab Springs uprisings. So this is starting like 2010, 2011, like not long after Facebook had been created. And you'd have people get on Facebook because countries, authoritarian regimes, they can monitor what's in the news. They can monitor newspapers and what's on TV, but it's way harder to monitor Facebook. So people would post, hey, we're going to go out and protest at the town hall at 4 o'clock today. Tell everyone you know, and then it gets shared a couple hundred times. The next thing you know, there's 60,000 people there at town hall. And then and then they might share something again, and someone from another country sees it, and they start doing the same thing. So you have all these countries throughout northern Africa and the Middle East that start to have their own uprisings. You have Oman and Yemen, you have, I believe, Egypt, Syria. We're going to watch this video on it. It goes into pretty good detail, gives you a good idea of what was going on.